It's me. Oh, no, what is Steve McMahon? Okay, so it's Donald Center. Shouldn't say that. One people.
We're live. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the study session of the University City Council meeting to order at 5:30 on Tuesday, May 27th, 2025. Prior to turning over the program to the city manager for the first quarter work plan, are there any changes to the agenda for this evening? Councilmember Smotherson.
Thank you, Mayor Crowe. I wanted to ask to make the change on the consent agenda items 1 and 4, if they could be moved to city manager's report.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing no one else. Mr. Rose.
Honorable Mayor and council members, I appreciate the opportunity to present the first quarter report for the work plan to you tonight. We are looking at trying to do a better job in informing not just you, but also the public about how the organization is performing. And you should have two documents. One is the presentation. One is the presentation, but the other, which I think will become increasingly important, is the capital project, where we will include the major projects that are underway. And there is some duplication. It may be in both the strategic work plan and on the capital report. But we want to ensure that you are clear as to the status of those major projects. My intention initially is to present this within the structure of your study session. It may become so robust that it may need to move to the planning session that you often have. And so that will enable us to have more time and to get also into more detail with some of these projects. But because many of them don't start until July, I thought this would be an appropriate forum to start with. So on page 1, and as I walk through this work plan, please feel free to stop me and ask any questions that you might have. If time expires, my intention is to roll this into the second meeting that you have in June. You may recall that we were intending to create a quarterly economic development report. In May, we hired the economic development, in April, we hired the economic development manager. And that person is going to lead the efforts in the creation of that report, along with Deputy City Manager Brooke Sharp. The reestablishment of the business and retention program, again, the ED manager will be leading the efforts with that. The third ward revitalization, you had asked us to encourage St. Louis County to place parking spaces along Midland. We're in the process, Deputy City Manager Brooke Sharp, in the process of actually hiring the revitalization coordinator. She is doing several interviews, and I'm hopeful we'll have that person on board within the next 30 days. The Loop CIP does not begin until July of 2025, so that I'm hopeful we'll be giving you a brief status update during the next quarterly report. That's the same for the Olive Boulevard CIP. We would like to move this one to the start time of January of 2026. Not sure that we would be able to have the resources available to do a real comprehensive job on that until that time period. And so my intention would be to bring back the work plan to you for modification. And there are other modifications that I'll review with you as we go through the document. Development of the Women's Entrepreneur Program is tentatively set for July of this year to start that initiative. Update the list of property inventory for city-owned and privately owned. ED manager will be leading that effort, and it is set to start this month. Identify site for police and fire. ISO ratings believe that a site to the west would be helpful in that area. It will be a satellite facility, but the intention is for that to be a combined city satellite facility with both the police and fire operating out of that. We're asking to move the start date for that project to January 26. Construction of the police court facilities, as many of you know, have had an opportunity to tour that area. They are making good progress at this time. It's on schedule. We expect completion in mid-2026. Evaluate the community paramedic program. This is led by Chief Ensign and his staff. There's still legislation that is needed to be approved in order for us to actually execute that project. We're not quite sure if that's going to make it across the finish line. One of the things that we have had some discussion about was the possibility of changing that have since sales tax for fire to a more general sales tax. That would be in addition to the percent that we have currently. But I'll talk with you a little bit more about that here in just a few minutes. Establishing a vacant building fee, that's something that's still on schedule to kick off in July of this year. Annual emergency preparedness training for city staff. We are intending to have an active shooter exercise. That will be led by the police department in coordination with human resources. The intention is to have that active shooter exercise here at City Hall. And that is slated to happen sometime in September. One of the elements that I will be asking Chief Hampton to incorporate is the situation that we could find ourselves in here. With limited egress and ingress. So if an active shooter did occur in this location, how would our police respond? What is the expectations for staff, for the city council to leave this space? So we want to make sure that we have a good process in place for getting people out. The Coruscant fire sales tax for the paramedic healthcare program that we were interested in initiating Prop C. We would like for you to consider making that more general sales tax that we can pursue. As you know, there is equipment that needs to be purchased and updated by the fire departments, such as ambulances, fire trucks, that a general sales tax would be helpful in purchasing. Installation of the license plate reader on Delmore and Olive. That project has kicked off. We won't be able to provide information on the location of those readers to the general public, but we will be in a position to tell you areas that they are in and when that project will be completed, when that project is completed. report of potential use of robotics in policing and fire. That I know that Chief Hampton has already started the research on the use of robotics in the police department. And I'm hopeful that we will have something to you in a study session around September of this year. Approve the landlord property manager registration list, evaluate vacant housing, vacant houses. The project was slated to start in 2022. We will be asking for a new start date for that project. The solid waste rate study, that project is being completed, was completed last month. Campus approval of the new rate structure. We have made outreach to let residents know about the new building structure, as well as we needed to make some slight modifications in the use of old stationery. That we think that we have addressed those minor issues that arose. And that we are well positioned now to start the registration. Report on architecture board. This is underway under review by the planning commission. That project slated to start in October of 2025. It actually started on the board then. But it is under review by the planning commission. And within the next 30 to 60 days, we hope to have information to you regarding what they are recommended and how you move forward with that. Establish the third ward revitalization program. The program was approved by the mayor and council, and we're in the process of hiring the coordinator. Evaluate developing dedicated bike lanes and more walkable areas. We'll be asking for a new start date on that. It was projected to start July of 2023. That project has not been initiated yet. So I will be working with the director to get a more realistic time frame when that project will start.
Mr. Rose, are you going to questions now or at the end?
Oh, man.
Ms. Brenner?
Just a quick question. You have Living Street Alliance listed here underneath the strategic project. I just wondered if we had considered using trail lines.
When the project starts, that's something that certainly, I believe that's up under Public Works, and yeah, we would certainly incorporate it and use them instead of this group. Absolutely. Update of the zoning code. As you know, that project has kicked off. We hired a firm to work with staff and with the planning commission on the update of the zoning code. We anticipate that taking about 18 months to complete, and some or all of you. If you haven't been contacted by the contractor, you will be sent to get input into that process. Evaluation of sustainability plan. Part of that we'll be looking at what are the fiscal impacts of the ordinance. That is being led by planning and zoning. It's slated to start in June of this year. Implementation of online license payment led by finance, slated to start in July. Study of greenhouse gases inventory. You may recall the study session. The Green Practice Commission has asked to be more involved in the preparation of the scope for that study. It is slated to start in July of this year. That will be led by the deputy city manager for sharp coordination with the planning department. examine consolidating the boards, committees, and commissions. That's a project that's slated to start in July. I guess I could argue and say it's actually starting tonight. But I don't. City clerk, Reese and I will be working with you on a path forward for that project. Strengthen the property maintenance code. That project is slated to start in September. We may end up looking at incorporating pieces of that into the zoning update. Planning and Development Director John Wagner is leading that effort. And so that's what we'll be able to tell you more about in the next quarterly report. Evaluate University Heights proposed storm ordinance. That ordinance is currently being evaluated by the Planning Commission. If you recall, it initially went to the Stormwater Commission, was voted out of that. Now it's gone to the Planning Commission and to a subcommittee of the Planning Commission. They have made a recommendation that is now being considered by the Planning Commission. Once that has concluded, we will have our first study session with you to provide the information coming from both the Stormwater Commission and the Planning Commission, and to receive direction and to give you our initial thoughts regarding the legislation, but also what we see as being the path forward for that ordinance. I'm hopeful that we will have our initial study session with you by December of this year. The evaluation of the purchasing cars that's slated to start in July. Development of fleet management program. Chief Ensign and his staff have been working for the most part in ensuring that we have GPS systems on all of our vehicles. I believe that process is completed or near completed. The next phase of it will be focusing on software package that can ensure when a vehicle is scheduled for maintenance, that there is some sort of ticket that goes to the departments and goes to fleet operations. So that vehicle is taken off the road and maintenance is performed. There are other components of the fleet maintenance program, but that's the core item. And we're hopeful that we will have that process completed by June of 2026. The update of the accounting policy and procedures that's being led by the finance department. We'll be asking you for your start date on that. Report to the city manager on development a designated automated fund line to take payments. That's slated to start in July of this year. Creation of asset management strategy and execution. We've hired a purchasing manager who will be leading the efforts to create that asset management strategy. For those of you who may not be as familiar with that, it's just ensuring that for every whether it's a desk or a chair or a vehicle or a computer, that is tagged and logged into our system so that we can have better control of where it is, when it needs to be replaced. Those types of things. So that's what the asset management will do for us in the purchasing manager will be extremely helpful in creating that strategy. Examine the feasibility of consolidating some services with other jurisdictions. That's a project that I've been working on with other city managers within the area. It's kind of eerie that we met earlier this month. And one of the discussions was whether there's a need to have a more coordinated effort for emergency management. The example that we actually used during that discussion was, what if a tornado hits? Which was a big area. So that's underway. There are other areas that we will look at, be it information technology or fleet maintenance. Also, we'll be looking at items such as vehicles, equipment that we purchase, where we may only use that piece of equipment once a year, such as a stump grinder, or twice a year. The other times it's just sitting around. So can we partner with other jurisdictions to purchase those types of equipment or vehicles and lower our costs for operations for all of the jurisdictions that participate. So those are some of the things that I'm discussing with the city managers in the area. Creation of a communication policy. This is going to be led by the deputy city manager for support services. The recruitment is underway for that position. That same thing applies to the creation of a citywide performance measurements. One of the new projects that I have added to this strategic work plan, or will be recommending that you add, is the retention basin. If you recall, that is a long-term project that we are working with the Army Corps of Engineers on. It's in the design phase, but will soon be going for funding for construction. That will represent about a $4 million hit to the city's budget, which is our share of the amount needed for both design and construction. So I just want to place that on the work plan so that that project isn't forgotten about. Establish a stormwater master plan that's underway with the Stormwater Commission. Hope to have something to a study session within the next 30 days. I told that will be completed by the Stormwater Commission here shortly. Creation of the road and sidewalk condition rating analysis. We have an analysis. We're trying to make some improvements with that. What that does is it creates a structure so that we go out, we take a look at all of the streets and sidewalks. We have a rating system that tells us when the street or sidewalk needs to be replaced. And so we plug that into our capital improvement program. So we need to be in a position for any resident that comes to us and asks, when is my road scheduled for, whether it is an overlay or is it complete rehabilitation of that road. We need to be in a position to say, here's when that is scheduled. And today we can't do that. So this is a program that will be led by the Public Works Department. And it's, oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Continue, but in that plan, will there are some of our neighborhoods that don't have sidewalks. Will we consider establishing sidewalks in some of those neighborhoods? For instance, 2 lane up by high school at Short Street. Some of the cross streets over the second ward that do not have sidewalks.
That is not normally a part of the maintenance, but it is a program that we can create. That's the will of the council and include funding for it in the capital improvement program. Absolutely. Pershing Street is another capital project that I'm proposing to add to this work plan. As you know, it's the design is completed, the plans have been submitted to MoDOT. Ferguson is another project where the design is underway that I'm recommending we include in this strategic work. Update of the personnel policies, City Attorney Mulligan, and our interim Deputy City Manager Amy Williams is leading the efforts to update our policies and procedures. The annually conduct the Gallup Q12 employee survey. We have conducted 2 surveys. And the third and final one is slated to start in July of this year. We'll have the results for that by August. Improved employees pension program. 2 areas we made drastic improvements to the non-uniform program, whereas it is currently at around 93%. Funded, and you just this last meeting approved the contract with Baker Tilly to assist us with redoing the uniform plan to make better strides at improving that. The salary survey update, I'm recommending funding that project in your FY 26 budget. This creation of a summer camp program that is being advertised, and we are accepting registrants for that program. That's a kickoff. And so at this point, my memory serves me right. We have about 16 kids that will be participating in that program this summer. So if you recall, it was designed to be a pilot program, and that we would learn from this, make adjustments for the next year's program, based upon what we learned this summer. So that's on track. I don't anticipate having any major hiccups with that. Creation of a free membership for school district students with certain GPA or attending summer school. I'm told that that project is underway as well for the school district to try and develop a program for that. The resident satisfaction survey, recommending funding that as a part of your FY 26 budget. The creation of the city flag, that is scheduled to start in July of this year. I will be recommending that the Arts and Letters Commission be heavily involved in that process, and actually starting with a discussion with the Arts and Letters Commission about what would a flag for a university city look like. Improve the webpage to connect seniors to services scheduled to start in July of this year. And I've also added or recommended that we improve our golf course driving range improvements. We have been in discussions with Deputy City Manager Brooke Sharp in exploring the hiring of a contractor to assist us with the contractor project manager to assist us with the management of that project. So with that, I would be happy to respond to any questions that you have regarding any of the projects that are on the road.
Councilmember Brenner.
I just have a general question, and this might just be me coming in. But how do we develop, the strategic work plan? Like, who has input into it? And how do we decide what is important?
It initially kicks off with the discussion with staff, the department directors. Then there is a study session with the mayor and council to confirm that, you know, this is what you want included in the work plan, to make any changes that you might have. Once the study session has concluded, then the final documents brought forward as a council agenda item. And it is approved, and still you have the ability to make any modifications that you believe is appropriate at that time. So starts with staff, discussion with the mayor and council in a study session, and then placed on council agenda.
Councilmember Clay.
Thank you, Mayor Pro. In line with Dr. Brenner's question, some of the items feel more like a little bit like routine work. And the example I'll use is the annual emergency preparedness training for C7. I could have this completely wrong. That's an annual event, right?
It is.
So will happen next year as well. So that to me feels like more just kind of work that needs to be done. And I know there are many things that you and the team does that are not listed here, but that feels a little bit like just kind of the work that continues day to day. Can you say a couple of words about how specific things get on here? And I didn't know that, and that's on me, I didn't know this before, but I do have a question about how some items got on here, or more generally, what's the process of getting items on here from your directors? You have the final decision to bring it to the council.
Absolutely. We started out with a planning session that lasts about 4 hours. Oh, I'm being conservative, I guess. It's scheduled to be an all-day session. We do a deep dive into many of the projects to determine, you know, what is feasible for us to recommend based upon the resources that we have available. And if you notice, I think in some areas we probably took a bite that we couldn't quite handle it. So we're asking to make some adjustments. But it is truly a discussion with the department directors based upon the resources that they have, based upon the needs that we just simply hear from the council and from the community. So that's how they typically get on initially. But then the study session that we have with you as a council, either confirms we need to go a different direction, or you make some modifications, or you may add a project. Good example of that was the flag that initially wasn't on. It was included based upon that study session, so it was added. So that gives you a sense of the process. Then ultimately you as the council decide what you want to approve. And at any time, you can make adjustments to this work plan. And, you know, we are pretty nimble, we'll go with it.
Okay, I appreciate that, and certainly, my work as part of the council is to, because it's lengthier than I remember, and there are a lot of items, and so we need to wonder, like, when you're from a strategic perspective, if you have just generally speaking too many items, it becomes difficult to tend to them all. Now let me speak out of the other side of my mouth and propose adding something. As we bring on board the third ward coordinator, one of the items that this actually was one of the first things to be accomplished from the task force was a renter
first right of refusal ordinance or process. So as if we're kind of prioritizing and there's several things that task force mentioned, of course, but this seemed to be one of the easier things that cost a lot of money, it doesn't involve some of the other steps that some of the other recommendations have. Putting that into the plan is one of the first things that can be done. That seems an easier win from the plan than get some of the other things that are articulated.
So we can, if it's acceptable to the council, we can have that as one of the first projects that the newly hired third ward revitalization coordinator. My intention after this, study session with you on this document. For those projects that I'm simply recommending that we add, they're not officially added. Until you actually take action on the work plan. So my intention will be to place this likely on the consent agenda, just for approval, just so that it's official that these are indeed the projects that you want us to track and report action. And I will include that ordinance as one of the top items that the revitalization coordinator will work on. So I'll make that adjustment within the study document.
Councilmember McMahon.
Thank you, Mayor Pro. Thank you for the updates. On the roof park range improvement project, is that the same as finishing the grading, or is this more involved? Because my worry is that we're contemplating contracting with the project manager, that would suggest to me that the grading isn't going to be done anytime soon. So that kind of worries me. So I'm hoping it's a bigger scope, because that would make me a little more easy. You clarify that for me?
Absolutely, it is much more comprehensive than just the grading issue. And I am still getting a good understanding of that entire project. And I can assure you that outside of this work plan, my intention is to have other discussions with you on the status of that the driving range. But in all fairness, I want to be clear with everyone. The driving range was going to close because it was in increasingly a state of disrepair because of the erosion. So we were very fortunate that we were able to receive the dirt from the Market at Hollow project, which will enable us to reduce our costs for the improvements to the driving range that are desperately needed. I'm not as convinced yet that we executed in the manner that we should. And so that is what I will be bringing back to you as a council with what our path forward is at this point and what our plan is. And for you to have input into that.
Councilmember Moses.
Thank you, Mayor Pro. And thank you, Mr. Rose, for the presentation. Wanted to ask a quick question or a couple of questions, and that is, project was under capital improvements or street maintenance program. And how soon can we get that information about what streets they're choosing to actually improve? Because we are almost in June of this year, so.
Would you mind sharing the page number?
I'm sorry, I do apologize, under the very last page, it's under capital improvements. And it's a second project listed, street maintenance program.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
just sorry about that,
No, that's it. I thought you were referencing the presentation. I will get an answer from Public Works on the timing for that.
Okay.
I know that we have, included funding in next year's budget, recommended budget. Some of that funding may end up being used for either Ferguson or Pershing or both for it. But let me talk with, Public Works and, get a better response for you.
Okay, and again, to better understand, are we proposing this project this year? With street maintenance, if that could be part of the answer that you provide,
Absolutely.
if you understand. And then the last thing that I would actually ask, and I do understand that there's a lot of things that the city is working on. But some of the things that I would like to get updated on and part of this plan, it's just like the playgrounds that are planned for Rady Park and Metcalf Park. And those signs have been in the Centennial Commons for, I can't even tell you how long. But it would help if we could get a better understanding of when those projects are gonna be done and completed. Because again, we've seen those signs standing in the lobby of the Centennial Commons for months. And I just would like to be able to have an answer as to when those projects will be done. And the last one is, I think that is all that I wanted, but if you could, thank you. Thank you.
Councilmember Brenner.
Were you gonna talk more about the capital improvements, because I was maybe.
Oh, no, go ahead. If you have questions regarding, I was not going to review the second sheet that you provided, it was intended just to be a reference. Right, because we did not include all of those projects on the work plan.
Okay. So, I just have a general question about that. I'm glad that we do kind of a professional review of the streets and the sidewalks to figure out like what's next. Do we do that for our buildings and our parks also? Because I feel like that could be strategic for us too, to kind of have a little bit of a grading of does this roof or this furnace need to be replaced in this much time? Or if we're looking at our parks, which playground equipment's the oldest, or, you know, we've had complaints about Lewis Park's edging coming down, because that's something in our critical range, you know? So have we thought about doing something like that, or have we done that?
In regards to the parks, the Parks Commission, I believe they have individuals commissioners that are assigned to different parks that look around and share with us what improvements need to be made to what parks. That recommendation is intended to go through the Parks Director to have a conversation with me, and then I have a conversation with you about what's being recommended. So there's a structure in place. I'll need to confirm that that structure is working. So that's in regards to the parks. Regarding the buildings, there was a review that occurred, probably dated now, of City Hall in particular, that identified some of the improvements that needed to be made. But you as a council have to prioritize, and you could not do both financially. So if you made the improvements to City Hall, you would not have been in a financial position to remodel the annex as well as the Trinity building. And so some of those other facilities will be next up that are owned by the city. Having said that, we did make some improvements to Centennial Commons as a result of the flood damage that occurred. And the Public Works building site. So what falls.
You may want to consider the parks as part of that too, just because I think, you know, we can get involved too much in opinions. Sometimes when people are like, well, I really like this park and I want playground, right? But this part was maybe like right here, because maybe they don't kind of have a strong advocate. You know, but if we have a little bit more of a kind of neutral sense of what really needs to be done, and we can kind of plan that out over time. Same with the buildings too, which it sounds like we sort of have that, and we have made certain decisions in the past, but going forward in the future. These are critical needs versus these are wants, right? So,
If acceptable to the mayor and council, I will ask staff to have that conversation with the Parks Commission, but to let them know of our intention to do place greater focus on staff conducting that evaluation as well. I just want to make sure that they understand it's in partnership with them. That it is not us trying to take it.
Councilmember Clay. Thank you, Mayor Crowe. I do have a question, forgive my ignorance on this. The quarter-cent fire sales tax for paramedic healthcare services. That is currently in place, correct?
No,
No, it's not in place. That's okay. Okay, because it wasn't ringing a bell, so it's not in place. So where is it in the process? I think I'm missing some pieces, forgive me on that.
you as a council have the ability to pursue an additional quarter-cent sales tax for fire. When this project was initially proposed, we believe that the legislation would be forthcoming that would allow us, the city, to have a paramedic program, which would have allowed us to be more involved in emergency services and create a program that would likely have been more heavily used by residents that had economic challenges. And so that the legislation did not materialize, so that project has been placed on hold for some time. We're not quite sure that that will ever occur in Missouri, so we'll be asking you to allow us to shift our focus. Where the legislation does occur, we would still be able to use that quarter-cent sales tax for that paramedic program, but if it does not occur, we will be able to use those revenues for different projects, equipment programs within fire services as well. It would become just more general, similar to what you have now with the existing quarter-cent sales tax.
Okay, so it would be potentially the general sales tax on top of the one that we have today.
We currently have a quarter-cent sales tax general for fire. We're asking to have that, they have since.
But there is no action right now to take this, would take an act of the Missouri legislature, correct?
That's correct.
And then an act of our voters or just through the state house?
For the paramedic program, it requires the Missouri state legislature to act. If you decided to allow us to pursue the additional quarter-cent, that goes before voter.
Correct, so there's no, yeah. Does that make sense, Councilor? Okay. I think we're nearing the end of our time. How often should we expect, since we've got a rather long list here, updates on this? And I'll speak, in my case, I would really like to have eyes particularly on Pershing and on the driving range, because and then I think the third ward task force gets right up there too, but I think the first two have probably caused a little bit of concern. And I think we would all, I don't speak for my colleagues here, but I think getting updates on those projects would be very helpful to us.
We're scheduled to do this on a quarterly basis. So every 3 months we'll be presenting this document to you. We are adding the capital program, which is that second document that Councilman Brink referenced. if it's acceptable to you, I think that we may need more than just an hour to do credit to presenting this information to you and getting feedback from you. So I would like to have this conducted during a strategic planning session. If that's acceptable.
I do not see any of my colleagues shaking their head no. So my guess is, again, I think it's probably the bigger challenge, but I think the sooner we can get started on that, that might be good for all of us. Are there any other questions of the city manager? Hearing none, we will adjourn the study session and start the open session at 6:00.